Brupeg was a sunken fishing trawler that's been brought back to life with the help of volunteers and funded by our Patreons, community and supporters. She'll be crewed by passionate people from around the world. If you'd like to be involved and support the project, please consider joining us on Patreon or subscribe to the channel on YouTube. This week we get the dinghy finished. We do some high-speed personal bests and we name it. But first off, we need to weld it. This is not going to be the episode for Instagram quality welds. It is, however, where brutal TIG welding meets industrial level dinghy building. Here I'm using pulse. That's where you can see that sort of on-off flash from the actual TIG torch. And you can see I'm bursting through the aluminium. It's really thin and you can see that there's holes that just turn up. And occasionally it will fire rubbish out of the weld and make a real mess of the weld. So that we're really struggling with impurities in the weld for this entire dinghy. And the thinness of the metal itself. After a while I gave up using pulse, I'm just using straight AC, and this allows me to blend in the large amount of material that's there. This is quite a lot of MIG material that was left over, and we tried to clean it up as best as possible, and then we're just going through to try and sort of melt in and fuse all of that aluminium in. So where I need to add filler I do, but most of the time I don't necessarily need it around these sorts of joints. Every single weld on this dinghy we went over with the AC torch just to give it a good clean up to make sure we can remove any leaks. See how we've got a big hole there?
Yeah.
You know what? We've got way too much power going. They're not pretty, but they're not going to fall off. Before we weld, we have to clean everything with a stainless wheel on the grinder. But you'll be alright now. While I go through and clean up these sorts of things, clean up the welds, etc., and then go over it with the TIG. Birk's over the back here, he is making handrails. So what we have here, there you go, you can see that one in the light. We've got handrails basically on the side of the boat. We want to put a bunch of them, so down the back end of the boat on either side, so that we can tie the boat down, but also so that we can hold on to them while we're zooming along with the outboard. Some of these welds, because they've been MIG welded, have got a lot of filler already in them, so I don't need to add additional filler and I can just melt it. But when I blow a hole through, I need to then start putting filler in to just basically fill that hole back up. So that's why I'm on and off the filler.
While Dame's fixing all the welds, I'm onto doing the last handrails for the dinghy. So I cut out a few selections of right angles, and they eventually gonna go from here all the way to here. So you get a nice long piece that you can hold on to.
These are the doublers that we're going to cut out. Birk's going to get them chopped, and then we can put them straight to the dinghy and weld them to it. Introducing Cutty McCutface. This is a 5-inch diameter saw, similar to a wood saw, like a skill saw blade, but used on a grinder, and it's perfect for cutting aluminium.
Time to clean those up. There we go. All clean up.
So we're starting to get there with some of the hull seams and things like that. We've got to buff off these little circles because we're going to weld some handles onto the back end of the boat. Birk's making them now, but this is where they're going to be welded, so we need to get rid of the aluminium oxide on the surface. Right, we flipped everything over. I need to finish the run from basically halfway up the tube up to the bottom on every weld. And then I want to do these big long runs that go all the way down. So this is where the tube is basically joined to the other side of the tube. So you got, you know, each half of the tube, if you will. And then we made it, when we did it, we joined the tube to the bottom at the same spot right the way down. So I want to go along that whole run. Bottom looks a bit sort of full on and messy, but it's because all the paint's been ripped off. We wanted the paint gone because paint is oftentimes a bit of a pain on aluminium. And this dinghy is never designed to be a showboat. This dinghy was always designed to be bashed against rocks and boats and crashed and modified and do all of that sort of stuff. That's why it's never going to be a showboat. It will always be something rough and ready. And it was the first dinghy that Jess and I have ever built, and it was probably one of the most complicated first builds that we could have chosen, but we knew that we could do it. We just didn't necessarily know how at the time. We got the very bottom, this part of the hull, we got that from the scrapyard for $40, and then we got these pieces of aluminium plate. This was 2mm flat plate. We got these rolled and we created tubes, and then we joined it all together and made a dinghy. But it was really difficult because the angles were really quite complicated to work out. So that was the thing that made it take so long to build this dinghy. It took about 6 weeks, I think, which is a pretty long time to build a little dinghy. It's only a 2-meter dinghy, and there was quite a few people involved. But it was a bloody fun project, and we were doing it because we were going to try and figure out if we could build our jet dinghy. This was our trial. Anyway, enough chit chat. People don't watch this show for chit chat and analysis of situations. They watch it for hardcore engineering. I want to show you something that highlights exactly why we're struggling at the moment. So this is old aluminium. You can see there's a lot of corrosion and discoloration and things like that, right? You've got to get aluminium really, really clean to weld properly. I've buffed this and it looks clean, but you can see there's smudges of rubbish going in there. There's like bits of black junk in there. There's awful welds up here from the MIG welder, but there's bits of rust that have embedded in here because this dinghy has been ground on at some point. Above the dinghy was grinding of steel, and that's gone into that weld. So all of that contamination, rust, junk in these welds is going to make these welds be horrific when we try and TIG weld this. So the only way to do this properly is to try and cut out as much of that junk weld as possible and put new good TIG welding in. So that's the plan. So you're probably wondering, why am I using something as brutal as Cutty McCutface here? And it's because aluminium doesn't like any rubbish in it. So you can see now that I've gone through this, this is pretty well cleaned up. There's a bit of wax and stuff over here I've got to get rid of. That's easy to deal with. But there's no more, well, there's a couple of pinholes of rust and things like that that are still embedded in there, but that's a deep hole that I'm not going to keep cutting out. But we're back to pretty clean material. So there you go, underneath all of the flakes. Most of that junk has gone, so it's not going to be a perfect weld. It's still going to be a bit average, but it's going to be much better than it was before. Now you can see here, this piece here has been buffed with the wheel, and this piece here has been cut, and there's a clear color difference between the two of them. I'll get you close up with the good camera and I'll show you that. So this is the difference between cut and buffed. So you can see this is clearly quite shiny and lovely, and all the way out here is pretty dull and boring. This actually used to look clean, this buff part, but nothing compared to what a cut surface is. So if you were to use, say, like a flapper disc or something and try and do this, you'll end up embedding the grit that's on the flapper in the aluminium, and you'll get rubbish in your weld. By cutting, you end up with a much cleaner weld versus any other form of, you know, preparation. After many, many weeks of welding this goddamn dinghy, it seems like, it's time for a bum check. So we have no handles on the side at the back, and we have some handles tacked on over there. You can see there's one handle. But what we want to do is see if bums fit correctly in this boat. So when it should be medium warm. We need two people. Someone needs to hike on this side.
Yeah. It's really comfortable.
Okay,
good.
cool.
Is your bum actually on it?
Yeah.
So
And my bum is slightly warm right now.
this is the episode you'll get to see Jess's bum.
If you could just make sure that this is warm every time I do this on winter, that'd be awesome.
So what we're thinking is it's slightly out. Like this here is slightly out from the hull, but it's also slightly up from the hull. But what it kind of does is allows you to tuck your bum in nicely onto that tube so you don't slide out. Because we want our bum to be able to sort of sit in this area here when we're driving along, and you've got something to hold as well. When you're zooming along with your outboard and whatever, you've got something to grab hold of. Another day, we're back into it. Now, we need to rip this off, put some doublers on and weld this on properly, just like we have at the front here. So you can see there's a circle that goes around here, and then the handle itself actually goes onto that circle and just thickens up the 2mm, so we're not trying to take all of that load with thin tube. So we've got our wind barrier set up again. So big tarp clamped to the side of the boat right the way around, just to try and block off as much wind as possible, because alloy really doesn't like wind. However, our tarp shredded that we had down here, this is going up the side deck. You can sort of see we tried to block that off, and yeah, that didn't really work.
I'm just going to clean it up.
Yep.
It's awesome.
So the doublers are welded in. Time for the handle.
I've bumped it up to 125, just give that a shot.
Yep.
What'd you find?
Maybe it's a bit better, yeah.
Yeah. I find if it's getting bulbous and just building up and not penetrating, it's normally not enough heat.
I mean, it was easy to transfer it over to the pipe, but it just didn't want to connect to the bottom plate.
Yeah, yeah.
There we go. First handle welded in.
One of the things we have to do for this dinghy is put a paddle on it, and because we have the ability to weld anything we like on this boat, I'm going to make some little brackets to hold this paddle off to the side so it's completely out of the way of everything. So let's see if we can get that done. I'm going to try and do autogenous tacking, basically tacking without filler rod. Here goes probably nothing. That did not work. It still did not work. Let's try all of that again, this time with filler rod. This is even more awkward than it looks. Oh. Stay there. You good thing, you. Right, let's give this one a go. Right, well that needs to clean off, but they're on. We also have these little holes, one there, there's one on the other side. This is where the cables used to come through for the old electric motor. Used to have internal cabling to the battery box down that way. But they're no longer needed, so we're going to seal that off.
I think that's good.
Yep, that'll do.
With those holes plugged, it's time to move on to the second handrail.
Alright. Now we need to figure out our length.
If you need to join two bits of pipe together, a real easy way to get them in line with each other is put it in a bit of angle iron, and the V holds them perfectly true to each other. And onto the second doubler, so this weld should be twice as good.
A few pinholes, but
Doesn't matter.
should be right.
Happy?
I think it's okay. When I go centre, this here isn't in line with this.
What do you mean?
So if you put that centre, this is higher here than it is here.
Oh.
See what I mean?
Yeah, that's
You can
why,
see-
that's because the angle there is smaller than this one. That's the one that was not
Ah,
the
right.
perfect round thing. I think we just do it. Are happy with that?
Yeah, okay,
that
just
way?
go centre.
Can you live with that gap?
Yeah.
Just move through.
Just doing it at the top first. Welding.
Maybe give that one another take as well,
Yeah.
so it doesn't move.
fucking ginormous gaps. So let's give you an idea. All of that weld on the left hand side, this is all nice clean aluminium. It welds really easily, it's beautiful. And then you hit all the junk that's inside these tanks, so the foam and corrosion and so on, all of that ends up basically turning into that black coal. When it comes out of the weld, it makes it very, very difficult to get a nice weld. With the dinghy in a strategically precarious location, we've got our pressure testing rig set up here. So we've got a pressure gauge and we've got a ball valve to turn things on and off. We are going to air test, we're not going to hydro test. Hydro test is better, but we've already hydro tested this, so we know it's capable of holding plenty of pressure. But for now, all we want to do is put about maybe 5 psi in, 10 psi, something like that at the max, just so that we can check the welds that we've done already. Early on, we found a fairly major leak, so we're going to put the bungs in. So putting pressure in the tank, and then what we're left with is this sort of thing. Soapy water, and it's bubbling up. You can sort of see where we've marked it there. That's creating bubbles. Oh, there's a leak there that's not been marked. So there's one just there and one up here. So we need to mark that. We're using about 5 psi, so you can sort of see there's quite a few that need attention. And then on the front here, there's a bucket load that need attention. Around this side, it's not horrific on this side. There's one there, one there. So day, we've lost count of pressure testing. Me and Jess are out here.
We're on that program Lost, you know, it just went on forever and never stopped, and there was no real answer in the end.
Day 568 of our incarceration.
Pretty much.
So pressure testing rig is in. This is looking awful, but we're going to clean that up with a flapper. We're getting most of these welds done. Most of the holes are going, so there's a few sort of marks here where we've had to do some welding over top, and we've cleaned that up and it's now not leaking. Okay, we are almost getting capable of holding pressure. So there we go, about 7 psi, and there's no leaks anywhere basically. There's a leak in this bung, which is fine, that's just thicker, and I'm assuming that bung probably leaks as well. But the actual hull itself, my god, some of these welds are ugly, but not one of them leaks. Right, I need to flip the dinghy over so that I can attack the couple at the top end of the dinghy at the front that are leaking. Now that I've gracefully tipped this over, I need to weld these little lifting tags onto the transom. This is going to allow us to tow things as well as pick the boat up and tie it down to roof racks and so on.
You want to test it?
Yeah, just... Some other little additions we put in. We've got our paddle clipped down there nicely. We've got our lifting hook on the front here. That's, yep, so that we can basically haul it between that one and then on the transom. We've got one in the corner and one on this side here, which can lift. And then also that little square thing that's welded to the side, that's for a light. We can slide a light into that and we can zoom around at night. And then we've got our two
towing eyes at the back here, so we've got one there and one there. That allows us to like pull things in the water, dinghies, kayaks, that sort of thing. Can you go more to the back? Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Okay.
That's a pretty good center point.
Yeah.
Pretty damn close.
Just go that way a bit. It's sort of twist it. Yeah, that's it. Nice. Yep, nice. Okay, let's go. Just lift the front as high as we can get it, basically.
I think that's good, otherwise you can't reach in there.
So our plan now is to basically get the water blaster in there and really give this a good clean. If you have a look up in the front here, got quite a bit of grubbiness that we need to clear out, and then right the way through just needs a blooming good clean. Particularly down along that edge, you can sort of see where that tube meets the bottom of the hull, and on this side, exactly the same on this side here. So there is sicca that goes down there that's been burnt. We need to get that out and then put some new sicca in there. So I've gone around and done an acid bath on this. Basically gets rid of all of the carbon from welding and so on, so you're left with just lovely, clean, shiny silver welds. So that's done. Last step is give everything a wash off, do one final pressure test, because I have gone around with a flapper and just buffed off the welds, so I just want to make sure that I haven't taken enough off that I've opened a hole up. But once that pressure test has been signed off on that valve over there, then we're going to go weld that hole up. Time for a sea trial. Now that everything's been cleaned up, it's time just to do final pressure check, just to make sure that our flapper wheeling didn't take any lumps off that had a hole underneath. Don't think it would have, but let's just be certain. So we're doing a pressure test, and then once that's finished, don't think we've got leaks happening.
We do.
We do?
We have one,
Whereabouts?
one right there.
Yep, oh yeah. One there.
There we have one.
One there. Yep. Okay.
One there.
Oh, bloody hell. Okay. I'm not sure if my flap wheeling did that. I think that might have been a leak before.
Yeah, might have been.
Yeah.
But I think that's basically it.
Alright, cool. Oh, that's good. We can fix that pretty easy. So once they're done and welded up, we're going to take this fitting out. Little test jig. You can't quite see the gauge on there, but basically there was air pressure in there.
bit more in for them. There's about 5 psi right now. And this block of wood thing here is because there's a plate that's siliconed onto a couple of electrical holes that we can't weld. So we're doing this so that the silicon doesn't have to take all of the psi. It can, we've done it before, but we're doing that just to be absolutely certain. There we go, finished article. And then on this side, huzzah. Hopefully with a bit of luck, this bar will protect these from getting ripped off too fast.
Down? Down?
Yeah. Like that.
Whoa, awesome.
Will it start?
Possibly. You have a feeling it might.
I don't reckon it will. I still don't reckon it will. I don't think it's going to make any difference no matter how many times he pulls it. Or how much fuel he puts in it. Check the run lever.
Thank you.
I reckon it'll go now.
Wait! Simply heading second way by.
I think that's the speed thing. It's going fast enough. It might make the spray.
Slow better.
Yeah, when you go slow, it does feel like you're driving a shoebox.
I don't think I ever went to full throttle so far,
Right.
so we definitely have enough power.
Impressions?
It's pretty wet.
Yeah.
It's moving. Good. It's like the waves, isn't it? It's pretty stable.
Yeah.
Pretty safe, you know.
Yeah. And this is the small dinghy eventually. How big do you reckon those waves are? A metre?
Maybe.
Maybe. This bit's going to be wet. Yeah. Thanks.
Wait. Ugh.
This is the sugar wharf at Bundaberg. So they've got a big conveyor that goes up there and then along there, and then over at that end you've got that big nozzle that basically fills up the hold of the ship. So we're just going to pull up and put one load in.
We are running out of sugar, aren't we?
Yeah. Pull up and say, can we get a kg? Just one.
We're year supply, just got the boat.
Yeah. We're out of sugar. I'll just go to the dinghy and shovel another load in. We're stirring up fish.
We're here visiting the Trev here on the river. He's anchored out here.
Jess was sitting on Trev's yacht at this point, so obviously with 2 boys in the dinghy, we had to check the top speed twice. This is obviously going to take quite a bit more testing to be thoroughly scientific, but so far we've been able to get a personal best of 18.5 knots.
I think my ride's here. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, so that was way faster than I thought.
The hull probably feels quite thin, like it was bouncing quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
With 3 people and on the plane at a cruise like this, you're only using about 60 or 70% throttle with this 15 horse and the little 2.5 metre dinghy. It does go like the clappers when there's no weight in it and you open her up. This was full throttle with 3 people in relatively flat water, and it did seem to be a bit faster. We think probably because it was trimmed better when it had this weight in it. Time to stick the drone up now we're in calm waters. Time for the important question. What is the name of this fire-breathing dinghy? At the moment, it doesn't have one. It's going to be named at this weekend's Patreon Roundtable. We'll announce it next week. If you'd like to be involved in future decisions about Brupeg, we'd love you to become a Patreon and join us at our next live roundtable.
Yeah, we need some curtains. Like a shower curtain all the way around. It's a bit more pleasant in here. Yeah, I thought it was going to be calm in here.
The big test. Did we find some holes? Bone dry. What about this one? Way! Alright, there's a leak somewhere.
Mainly actually the bunks at the back.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right, the bungs themselves leak. Right, okay. Now that the dinghy is finished, we've got ourselves a real solid little boat so that we can hit the water running. Essentially what that means is when we launch the boat, we can go on to anchor sooner rather than having to tie to a wharf and stay there because we don't have any means of getting back and forth. That little dinghy, more than powerful enough, and because it's quite fast, it means we can anchor further away from places and have ourselves a good little transport. Right, we're not going to see daylight for the next couple of weeks. We're going to be buried in the engine room because we've got parts that have come back and we're ready to get stuck back into the engine and gearbox.